Hardware tech. It's time to talk about hardware and technology in relationship to technology and hardware. That was an awesome opening. I'm very proud of that. Yeah. Some leaked specs, or actually Intel's posted prices and just the entire model numbers for their upcoming CPUs here. You guys can see the list on the screen. I don't think there's anything too exciting here. It looks like we're getting 100 megahertz boost pretty much across the board. And no K parts are listed here. There are T parts and S parts listed. And what's funny is some of the T parts and S parts, even though they're different numbers and have different prices, have the exact same specs. So maybe there's something slightly different, like the 4570S and the 4460S are looking to be identical. Like, what's up with that? They're both, but the base clock is 2.9. None of the turbo frequencies are listed here.
Low power, probably.
I don't know. I have no idea. Slightly different. There are too many products. Intel, why do you need this much segmentation? Like, it's very confusing for people who are not like really into the model numbers. I mean, and also let's just, if someone just walks into a store and they need a new computer, a lot of times with all these different numbers, they're going to have no idea what all of it means. They're like, there's a T and an S. So, I mean, I guess you need people like us on the internet to help explain these things to, people who are not as into it. And then we need to have Intel explain these things to us. But there are just, I think there's too many damn parts. I don't know. That's my take on the whole thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So Wendell, I made a huge mistake. I purchased a Dell 4K monitor, one of the ones for like $600 or something.
Oh no.
I was like, oh my God, a 4K monitor, it's 30 Hertz. But I was like, you know what, it'll do 1080p at 60 Hertz. I could just do that when I'm gaming. But when I'm editing, 30 Hertz should be just fine. I mean, really, I don't need any more than 24 frames per second because we shoot all this stuff in either 24 or 30 frames per second. So 30 Hertz should look okay with that.
And 30 Hertz is in fact okay.
Yeah, it is in fact okay. And then I really wanted that much desktop real estate. And I get it, I hook it up. It stayed on my desk for all of about 12 minutes before I almost threw it out the window.
Enjoying that 200 millisecond input latency, huh?
Yeah, I just can't get enough of that. You know what it feels like? It feels like I'm moving my mouse through soup on the screen. It's like, my mouse is drunk. It just like, I tell the mouse to move and then like 200 milliseconds later, it's like, oh, I gotta go over here now. Oh wait, I'm gonna go, oh God. It was really bad through the mini DisplayPort. I love the connectivity options. I love the stand. Dell, just rip the stand off and give me a better, I guess for $3,000 I can have a better monitor, but my God, it's awful. It is, that's my review. I'm gonna do a review on this thing and I'm not sure how nerdy I can get because I don't think I can bear using it for very long. I tried the HDMI, the latency was a little better. I turned it down to 1080p and the latency was a little better still, but it is so noticeable. And I thought I was going to be able to game at 1080p. Never. It's a TN panel. It's more washed out than I thought it was going to be. It looked better at CES. Maybe it was just the lighting, but it sucks. Now Samsung, on the other hand, I saw Linus review this Samsung 28-inch 4K display at 60 Hertz. Now this one is doing some voodoo magic here. The model number on this one is the U28D59 or 590D. Now what's interesting about this one is that normally what you're going to need is like like a lot of times with the scalers and the other monitors that are 60 Hertz and 4K, they require, like it's almost like they're taking two monitors in Windows and putting them together. You can probably explain that better than I can. But this Samsung monitor does not need that. You can do it with single link. Just works with one DisplayPort connector.
You gotta have DisplayPort like a 1.2 or better or something. It's gotta have the higher clock rate support, which is not. It's not universal yet. I mean, most recent video cards can handle it, but you gotta be a little bit careful here.
That is true. So you do need a fancy video card that can actually push this thing. But if you do have, the newest implementation or one of the newer implementations of DisplayPort technology, you should be able to drive this, and it should show up in Windows as one monitor, which is freaking awesome. And his reports are that it's pretty good. After looking at just the quality of even the TN panel, it did look pretty sharp. I played BioShock at 4K, and that again felt very drunk. Even though I was getting, over 30 frames per second. It was okay. I had to turn off VSync, and the screen tearing was really bad. Where was I going with this? It's just the color reproduction. I know it's a really good implementation of TN, but no. No, it's the color reproduction on the Shimmying right behind me is so much better that it is ridiculous. So I'm pretty much just going to have to wait until I can spend the money and get an IPS 4K display that's at least 60 hertz. That's where I'm going to start. And until then, for this money, I'll take 2 X-Stars or 2 Shimmians. No problem. Just get 2 of them for the same price. Why not?
The lack of VESA mount is also a deal killer for me.
Oh, on the Samsung, that's a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I have to have my tree. I can't live without my tree. I must have VESA mounts.
Well, also take a look at the stand on this thing. The stand, it supports tilt, and that's it. No swivel, no pivot. The Dell supports tilt and pivot and swivel, and you can turn it upside down. It's got the most beautiful stand ever, and then the display just sucks. And the Dell is the Samsung is the other way around. Amazing display, and what the hell is going on with this stand? Why would you put that little stick on the bottom of an $800 monitor?
So we're hoping that in a matter of weeks, there's going to be a Korean 4K monitor that solves all these problems and costs $300.
Korean 4K monitor with this Samsung panel, I would probably buy if it was 60 hertz and had the same technology. You're going to need a decent scaler to run it like that, so it'll probably cost about as much.
I don't even know that you're going to need scalers anymore, because things have gotten to the point with DisplayPort where, some of these displays are literally, it's DisplayPort on the LCD. Like there's a 27-inch panel I was farting around with, and it is literally DisplayPort off of the LCD, and I'd literally just need an adapter from like the really thin flexible cabling to real DisplayPort, and the electronics there are to drive the backlight, and that's basically it. And you do all the color correction. Everything is computer side. There is no electronics inside the monitor. But I think monitor manufacturers and PC folks are maybe not ready for that yet.
I guess it all depends on your setup as far as your system goes. All right, let's move on here. I really hate touchscreens. In fact, that I hate them so much that I barely even use my phone now that it doesn't have a keyboard. And if I'm in public and I get a bunch of messages real fast, I will hand my phone to anyone who's near me. And if you've been somewhere with me, I think I did this to Paul after a couple beers the other day. I was like, dude, someone's bothering me, and I just like shove my phone into their hands and be like, can you just type 3 words on there and press send for me? And they're like, excuse me? And I'm like, just take my phone and write these 3 words, right? I'll see you later, and then press send. And then they're like, are you serious, dude? I'm like, I can't stand touchscreen. Well, it looks like Tactus Technology has something that I might be interested in. They've created, it's sort of a protective screen or something that goes on top of a tablet. They're testing it out with some tablets right now. But it essentially has some fluid-filled channels, and they rise up when you need them to create like little elastic blisters, and then they become buttons. So they give you a more satisfying experience on your device. I really want something like this, man. It seems like sci-fi. Like whenever you need a keyboard, the blisters just rise up out of the screen, and then you can type on them. But this, if they can make this, I don't care if it happens in 2 or 3 years, I'll be in line right now waiting for this. I don't know. Is this something that you're excited about, or are you kind of like whatever, touchscreen works fine?
No, I think the plastic is, I don't think they'll ever get to a point where the plastic is as good as like clean Gorilla Glass. What's probably more likely to happen for me is I'm going to get the magnetic implant in the fingertip, and then when I touch the thing, the little coil like pulses the thing, and then the thing happens with my finger.
So you have it'd be satisfying in a different kind of way. You'll still get the feedback, like a slight bit of a twinge or a tactile feedback in your. Where are you going to put it in, like your thumbs, or like your? How do you type on there? I don't even know how to type on one of these things.
I don't really. Mostly I use my thumbs, but I can't touch type on that kind of thing.
Yeah, it doesn't work out for me either. All right, moving right along here, let's talk about Google's modular smartphone, the Ara phone. And so they're actually serious about this, and it looks like it's going to be launching in January. Now, what this phone does is it's got several different components. If you want Wi-Fi, if you want, what's that thing that you, NFC, near field communication, if you want something like that, you'll just get a module for it and plug it in. If you want a better camera, you can get different sensors and just snap them all together. So it's essentially like building a phone out of Legos with all the different parts to be exactly what you want.
More battery life, add more battery modules.
Yeah. Now, what's really interesting about this is that, and this is where I think that they're going in the right direction. It's not just functionality, it's also aesthetic. You can build a phone to meet your aesthetics. I think 90% of the audience is probably going to build a phone to look a certain way, and the features are going to be second in nature. And I think that's just kind of the way things are. A lot of the market right now is aesthetic. You know, like I'll give you guys a 2-second story. I got a friend of mine like an uber nice pair of headphones, right? And he put them on for all about 2 seconds, looked at himself in the mirror, and he was like, I don't know, man, they sound okay, but I think I'd rather have skull candy because they look fresh or something like that. And I like, I don't even know. Yeah, but I really do think that that's a huge plus for this device. You think you're going to try one of these, or?
I sort of made fun of this, and I still kind of make fun of this, but it's really interesting. I like where they're going. I like the idea. I like the concept of a modular phone. I don't see why we couldn't do it like with a phone that you just take apart and disassemble. I guess this is meant to be user friendly.
Well,
I think it's going to produce.
You could do it that way, but
well,
I don't think
it's going to produce a phone that's just too bulky. I mean, they're going to come out with this, and then somebody else is going to come out with the phone that was like, it's not modular, but it's half the thickness, and everybody's going to be like, ooh, let's go with that phone. Or this phone looks like just a sheet of glass, and it's like, ooh, let's go with that. But conceptually, functionally, yeah. I really like this.
I don't know. The thing that I like probably the most about it is that it's just made by Google. That means it's probably going to have a vanilla version of Android on it. No nonsense, no bloatware, no waiting for updates and that sort of thing. And that's a big deal for me, having the actual Google experience as intended by Google. All right. Moving right along here, let's talk a little bit more about Google. Google has acquired Titan Aerospace. It's a drone company. So they're going to be, and they make armed drones to kill civilians. That's exactly what Google's going to be doing. No, I'm joking. These drones are like uber high altitude drones. And some of the potential uses for this, I don't know. We'll talk about it right now. But, Facebook was looking at this, and they ended up buying, a different aerospace competitor from the UK or whatever. But Google purchased this one. Now, back to what we were talking about in the last episode. I think Google could use this to help spread the internet to places where it normally couldn't go. They could fly these drones and have these drones broadcasting, high-powered Wi-Fi signals to get the internet out there. Because just like I was saying in the last episode, when a company like Google gets this big, they don't just sit back and go into maintenance mode. They go, well, we're this big. How else can we spread? Let's start buying new technologies. Let's buy some, balloons and put Wi-Fi on them. Until Google reaches the entire globe with super high-speed internet, I don't think they're going to stop. And that's kind of scary. We need Kane right now to jump on and be like, Skynet. we need that right now. But I don't know. Is that kind of where you see this going, or what other potential uses do you see for this?
Honestly, I really thought that most of the applications for Google were going to be around maps and traffic and real-time information and things like that. But some of these drones are designed to, go at 65,000 feet for up to 3 years. It's not really clear if that's 3 years all at once or if they're designed to stay in flight for 3 years or whatever. But these are massive drones that have military-level capabilities in terms of surveillance and not weapons capabilities, obviously, but basically everything but weapons. And that's probably good for Google. That's probably good for like the self-driving car stuff. Can you imagine if there were a fleet of completely automated sort of quote-unquote traffic controllers in the sky helping with automated cars? I mean, that would be really interesting.
Well, that would be, okay, that's a big bonus. The cameras on this, uber high resolution. So, okay, you've got the cameras put into action and they're monitoring traffic, right? So that's one application. And then you've got the Google cars going around, driverless cars. That's another application. Now, what about this? What if they had a version of Google Maps or a version of Google Earth in the future, in the next few years, that is almost up to the minute based upon these things? That'd be kind of wild, wouldn't it?
Well, especially if there was an event. Like, can you imagine one of these, 10,000 feet over the Super Bowl? I mean, the companies that run that would have a heart attack and like shoot them down or something. But they could broadcast it over YouTube, from 10,000 feet up with the optics on this thing and be down into individual blades of grass on the football field.
That's pretty ridiculous. All right, let's take a look at some more robots. I'm in a robot mood. The Morphex. Have you seen the Morphex?
Yeah, these look really cool.
Yeah, it morphs into a ball. It's very slow at this point, but I'll go ahead and play a little bit of it. It morphs into a ball, then it rolls around. Let me just fast forward a little bit so you can see the the ball rolling. Oh, I turned off my VPN, so now look what's happening to my YouTube. I'm running at 360p. Come on, YouTube. Wow. This is what happens without a VPN.
This is what happens when YouTube doesn't pay off your ISP.
Yeah.
Listen, Vinny takes care of the packets.
So there, this robot can roll, and it looks kind of creepy when it actually is propelling itself. Let me go forward. There we go. It sort of flexes its fins to roll. It's weird. But yeah, this thing can roll around and then be deployed. And I saw some articles online that are all like scary doom and gloom. This is the stuff of nightmares, but there are probably a lot of different applications for something like this. It's just an interesting robot. I mean, it doesn't really do anything fancy. I mean, everyone's always in their brain putting weapons on these things. Like, what if it has a laser cannon? What if it has a particle vaporizer? And that's exactly what I want.
Hey, there's somebody in the Department of Defense somewhere that is saying, we're going to deploy this with C4 on the inside, and it's going to be amazing. And that's all they've done all week is just go around to all the people and be like, yeah, C4, all right.
C4, but I mean, if they're going to do C4 on this, why don't they just like make it nice and fluffy? What if it was like a big fur ball or a tumbleweed or something like that? This thing looks no good. Like if I was, okay, let's say if I was in some country where the U.S. occupies it, somewhere in the Middle East, and I see one of these things running, I'm going to shoot it from a distance, or I'm going to get the hell out of there. I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't want any part of things that I don't know what are. That was a weird sentence, but mysteries are no good in this part of the world. Mysteries are rabid dogs as far as I'm concerned. Until proven otherwise, it is a rabid dog with a grenade inside. That's exactly what it is. So when I see this thing, my brain thinks rabid dog with a grenade inside. Get the hell out of here until I know what it is. If they make it like a cute furry thing, and then it's like, oh, look at the cute furry thing, and then it's like, oh, there goes, where's my arms?
It's my remote-controlled robotic cat. Yeah, that'd be great. With C4 on the inside. That's not going to get PETA up in arms at all.
You know, when I was in school, I had an idea for a weapon to use in war. I was like, guys, why don't they just start using grenades filled with angry hornets? Because think about the application. If you've got a bunch of guys entrenched and you throw a grenade with angry hornets into that trench, they all pop up. Snipers have a field day. See, I should be working for DARPA. No, not so much. All right, let's move on then. I don't even know if I put this in the outline or not, but I found this article, so we should probably talk about it. Oklahoma has decided to tax people who are using solar panels. Have you seen this yet?
Yeah, we've talked about this a little bit before. It's really like, I want to be outraged about taxing people that use solar panels, but the fact of the matter is that a large percentage of the cost of electricity is maintaining the grid, and we've got to maintain the grid because it's sort of complicated, but if we don't have a really well-regulated and really well-maintained, well-run electrical grid, it is going to be very bad for business, small business especially, in America, and, you know, just general quality of life. But at the same time, solar should be encouraged and adopted. We do need to get away from fossil fuels, and we need nuclear and thorium and those sort of things. So it's like, what are we going to do?
You know, one of my biggest problems with this is in the location of Oklahoma in particular. Right now, they're frustrated because it's going to be taking, they feel like it's going to be taking some money out of the pockets of the current, you know, power companies and the gas companies and that sort of thing. But the thing is it's going to be, right now, you know, the prime time, right, in the evenings when everyone's using a lot of power, and during the daytime when people need like their air conditioning. These things are going to be generating power, so they're going to alleviate some of this stress on the grid. You know, instead of adding stress to the grid, they're actually going to alleviate it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think so too. It's really the result of this is it's going to cause people to not adopt solar, which is not a behavior that you should encourage. But at the same time, the grid has to be maintained. So I'm not sure what the fix is.
All right, let's talk about some science, shall we?
Yes, science.
All right, so a very Earth-like planet. In fact, the most Earth-like planet yet has been spotted by Kepler. So they're going to call it Kepler 186f. Now, here's the artist's rendition of Kepler. It's almost the same size as Earth, just a little bit larger, and it is. There's good things and bad things about this planet right now. It's like 10% larger than our planet. It looks to be a rocky planet based upon the size. Usually, planets in this size are rocky planets. Once they get a little bit bigger, The atmosphere is really dense, and it's good. You know, those are usually like gas balls. Even though I guess you could have a huge rock planet, couldn't you? I don't know.
I mean, theoretically, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, it's orbiting a star that is smaller than the sun and a bit more active than the sun. So here's the deal. It rotates, or it goes around this star in a zone where the water could be liquid. It's not going to evaporate, it's not going to get too hot, and it's not going to freeze. However, since the star is smaller and more active, there's a lot more solar radiation, solar flares, and that could be really bad for anything living on that planet. So kind of cool, but there's going to be a lot more out there. I guess the implication here is that now that the Kepler telescope has discovered this one, I mean,
more are soon to follow.
Yeah, lots more are soon to follow.
We just need to look for ones that have a particular polarization of light returning from them, because if the plant coverage on Earth were sufficient, the light reflected from Earth would have a certain tendency to be a certain way, and we would be able to detect that maybe if we could actually directly see the light from those things far away, because plants are absorbing light of a certain polarity, and the other light is reflected.
Hey, Wendell, how about some floating nuclear plants that could outride tsunamis? So there's some new nuclear plants here, and they're saying that a plant like this could have, outlasted or rode out the tsunami in Fukushima. And I cannot get enthusiastic about this. It's similar technology to what you see with like oil rigs and oil plantations, or oil plantations, what's the word I'm looking for here? Oil rigs and stuff like that out there. But I mean, for all the trouble you'd have to go through to build this thing, they're saying, hey, if anything went wrong, we could just potentially use the seawater to cool down the rods and stuff. Why not just use thorium, guys? Like, why? Seriously, why can we not just use thorium? That's
because thorium makes too much sense.
Yeah. So there's like all this stuff here talking about it, and the entire time I was reading this, I was just, guys, just thorium, please, now.
Yeah, China's really putting thorium in high gear.
That's really good. I mean, if China ramps it up, maybe we'll look at it and be like, we can't let those Chinese get ahead of us in anything, especially not thorium.
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the NASA satellite. So, there's a group in Kentucky, Wendell, actually looking into working on this. There's a giant satellite in Kentucky.
Yep. Turns out we have it.
Yeah,
we may have mentioned that.
It's on the roof of your building, isn't it?
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
1 millionth in the volcano lair. Yes.
So anyway, NASA's budget has shrunk so much, and this particular satellite is going to be very close to Earth, but it's offline, and someone needs to log in and jog it back online. We talked about this a couple episodes ago, so I just wanted to basically see how you're doing, and with any efforts. Have you got everything in place?
Yeah, the magic is not going to happen until August, but
yeah.
Things are happening behind the scenes to try to get people in place to do the code and do that kind of thing. I'm not really involved. I'm just sort of got a spectator seat, but it's really, really interesting, and I really hope we're able to pull it off.
Yeah. All right, next up, I kind of want to, wow, your camera's like all pixely, but maybe something's wrong with the connection. Anyway, we'll just move on. And another article on Motherboard I wanted to talk about, and this is something that we can all have a conversation about in the comments, but 1/3 of Americans think that technology is going to ruin their lives. And there's a breakdown here, male, female, and the different age ranges. And I thought it was interesting that the age range that was, I guess, most negative on technology was the 30 to 49-year-old age range. And then the 18 to 29-year-old age range was about the same as the 50 to 64-year-old age range. They think that technology is going to ruin their lives. So, I don't know, do you think technology is ruining anybody's life?
I think that there's the possibility that possibly the technology haves and have-nots, the gulf there can create undue hardship when there shouldn't be. And that can come in the form of, a surveillance state or suppression of ideas, Or it could also come in the form of, it's like, I have a really good idea for something. I'm going to do something disruptive. I'm going to do the next Napster. And then all of a sudden, the SWAT team comes in and it's like, I just wanted to develop the next Napster, which is arguably useful technology. But because it upsets the status quo, it upsets the apple cart, all of a sudden it's like, we need to send in the SWAT team and eliminate the threat. It's like, what? I'm pretty sure that's not how that's supposed to work.
Yeah, the problem here, and from exactly what you're saying, I think the problem here is more the people and not the technology. It's that people don't understand it. So we have it's an education problem. Most people are completely ignorant. I'm not sure where that article went about the hacker, or not the hacker, the programmer from Russia, Sergey, whatever, who it was in Newsweek. We should probably talk about that too, because that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that was sort of an example of how technology can ruin. Basically make a long story short, there was a programmer that worked for Goldman Sachs. He left the company, or he wanted to leave the company to go work on his own thing because, the Goldman Sachs high-frequency trading stuff is an absolute nightmare, mess, spaghetti, people having heart attacks. It's like the worst thing to work on if you're a programmer. And Goldman Sachs really likes to keep their programmers down and sort of abuse them a little bit to keep them in line. And so he was a really good programmer, and, money wasn't really important to him. But he made a lot of money working for Goldman Sachs, obviously. But he wanted to go off and do his own thing. And so he let him know. He's like, hey, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go work on my own thing. It's going to be great. And they're like, well, will you stay around and train the new guy for like 6 weeks? And he's like, yeah, I'll stay around and do some extra stuff. A lot of the Goldman Sachs really could not run a technology department internally to save their life. So he used a lot of open source tools. He used a lot of stuff that he'd written himself.
Yeah.
And he uploaded some of the tools that he'd modified to make his life easier to the internet. And somehow that turned around into the feds arresting him and putting him in jail. But he didn't have a lawyer, and he signed a quote-unquote confession. But, like, they wrote up this confession, and you have to read the article, but it's like, the person writing this, I was genuinely trying to explain to them why it was wrong, and it's like I would confess to copying some open source tools and modifying some open source tools, but these are not Goldman Sachs trade secrets and blah blah blah. And then later in the trial, the prosecutors were like, look, he's trying to be tricky with his words, and they made it out to be the most nefarious thing ever, which, as we learned in the last episode, you get a lawyer. You are out of your depth if you have naivete is punishable by 5 years in prison or a $250,000 fine or both.
Yeah, I mean, I do want to expand on this just a little bit, just to show you guys how, I guess how bad it is, because the jury didn't understand, the judge doesn't understand. The FBI, he said that when he was sitting there with the FBI, they were basically throwing a bunch of buzzwords around, and he said it was almost like playing a really bad game of telephone, the game where you whisper in someone's ear around in a circle, and then by the time it gets back to you, it's just so jumbled that you have no idea what they're talking about. So he said really, nobody knew anything about anything. They don't understand open source. And people inside at Goldman Sachs, whenever he would download some open source code from the internet and make some changes to it, and then the people, while he was working at Goldman Sachs, would yell and scream at him that they own that open source code, and they wouldn't let him re-upload it, or they'd tell him not to. But I mean, legally, open source code, if you're going to use it and you're going to make changes to it, it has to be available to the community. That's the agreement that you...
depending on the license,
right.
That's not necessarily true, but he may or may not have had the right to do what he did. Perhaps it was not good judgment.
Yeah.
Does it mean that he needs to go to federal prison for 5 years? Anybody that knows what they're doing and looks at the facts of the case, a jury of his peers with familiarity in the subject matter, I feel almost certainly would say, no, this is not legit. But again, because nobody understands your lowest common denominator. I mean, it's like, would you put faith in the common person off the street to understand something? If somebody accused you of something, and if you're forced to answer anything other than, no, then you're really naive.
I think the main thing that really got him in trouble was he would go in and delete his history or whatever, or I think it was his recent history in Bash, and that was because the next person that logged in would be able to see his password.
Yeah, that's really not that nefarious,
thing.
But prosecutors that don't understand things have a pretty bad history in pretty much every computer-related case of making out innocent things to be the most evil things ever. And it's like, well, this log shows that you took a screenshot of this. Why would you do that? And it's like, well, I wanted to remember what I did. So if I have to do it later, and it's like, that's evil. And it's like, so anyway, I don't think so.
So anyway, I guess I'm going to play the role of a misanthrope here and say that, like, listen, I'm all for technology. I'm not all for people. I don't think people understand technology. I think people are, by and large, ignorant, not stupid, because everyone has the ability to learn. It's just many choose not to learn, or many choose to learn other things, and so therefore they're ignorant of things. And people that are ignorant with tools in their hand can be very dangerous. And that's what we have here with technology. We have a lot of really ignorant people running around with tools in their hands. And that's that's pretty much the problem. So I'm not against science. I'm not against technology. I'm against responsible use of all these different things. And
bad things can happen to you because you are naive. This is not, you should never forget this. This is honestly something that you could learn when you're 12, and that is, you absolutely can be eaten alive by that butterfly. And it's like, oh, I'm going to be completely fine. The world is just. No, it isn't.
It's got venom glands about yay big. Look at the bones.
Yeah, it's really it's really sad. I mean, there's really not a way for to equip oneself. I mean, even if you're 3 standard deviations away from the mean, in terms of like how average you are, if you're 3 standard deviations away on the far end, and you're the man's man, you're not going to be able to manage this on your own, because it is an absolutely labyrinthian thing, and the most innocuous thing that you would do would be twisted against you, and it's just so silly.
So yeah. All right. Well, anyway,
it's because people lack the ability to look at it rationally and be like, "This smells like BS." Because the average person, it's like imagine how dumb the average person is, and then half of them are dumber than that. It's a really bad situation.
But if you step back and look at it, technology is just the newest thing that's happened, right? It's the newest thing that's happening. If you look back at history. People say, oh, they had it better in the 70s. Well, no, there were bad things going on then, and by and large, it was because people were stupid or hateful or whatever. And then you look back, another 100 years, and people had it better then. Well, maybe they did, but maybe they didn't. There were still wars going on, genocides. There's always been bad things, and by and large, it's caused by people. I think our big brain is the biggest problem ever. If we just had a small brain and we were just like sit around a campfire and kill animals and
it is kind of funny because a lot of laws in first world countries depend on intent. Like, what did you intend to do? And this guy very obviously did not intend to cause Goldman Sachs any harm, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter at all. But most of the time, intent, is like, did you steal that? A lot of the time, possession is 9/10 of the law, but it's like, did you steal that? Or, was it, well, no, I didn't mean to steal it. And it's like, oh, okay, well, just, fix it and we'll move on with things and it's fine.
Right. He clearly didn't profit from anything that was happening, by him downloading that stuff. But
when developers that actually knew were like, well, he had access to Goldman Sachs' proprietary trading algorithms. He didn't take that. Why would he, who would care about some shell scripts and some open source, it's like an improved version of grep. I mean, come on, really? Come on.
So what we have here really it's the FBI agents, the powers that be at Goldman Sachs, the jury, and all those guys. Those are the people who are afraid of technology and therefore have to punish it because they're scared of it, if that makes any sense. So I think they're the ones in this case who are afraid. Anyway, let's move on and talk about some more fun stuff. Toyota has confirmed a fuel cell launch for 2015, and there's not going to be it's not going to be a huge deal because there's not a lot of places to refill your car with hydrogen or whatever, but it's interesting to see that they are working on this. I don't know if hydrogen is the future or not. BMW is working on some technology to help accelerate this stuff.
The technical aspects of this press release, which are not covered in this article, but you can find, one of the things that they want to do with this is back to the smart grid thing that we always talk about, and this will happen. This is the thing to keep an eye out for. In an emergency situation, Toyota is saying that you could actually have this car run your house for a week.
Yeah, those hydrogen fuel cells are pretty damn powerful.
Yep. And so if you combine this with solar, could be a thing.
Yeah, like a blizzard hits or a disaster hits or whatever. Hey, let's just plug the car up to the house. How about that?
Well, I mean, if you run your car, if you run your house off the car at night, or you've got fuel cells in the car and your house, this could actually be a viable combination of technologies for the average American commuter, the average American homeowner. And this kind of thing could make the grid obsolete. But I think the grid is going to be really important for like the next 50 years in residential scenarios, just because of blizzards and storms and things like that. Although you could get to a point where every house is just independent. I mean, that's possible, and fuel cell technology is moving that way.
I want to talk about some more robotic stuff. I get kind of excited about this stuff, and I actually am kind of excited about the singularity and about, you know, robots that are almost as real as human beings. And right now, if you guys look at Misu Kim, if you look at his blog here, he has something he's been working on, and he's trying to replicate the human voice, and he's doing so by using fans and tubes and essentially recreating lungs to simulate human breath. And the result is something that listeners cannot distinguish from human speech. It can even whisper, and it sounds just like human speech. People are saying that at first it's like frightening because this is not produced by a human being. It's produced by a machine. These are words typed into a screen or something like that. I'm not exactly sure how he's doing it. I wish that there was a sample on here we could download and listen to. But I mean, the implications of this. Can you imagine buying one of these things, putting them on at night, and just having a machine whisper sweet nothings in your ear while you doze off to sleep? Is that creepy, or is that not creepy?
I want one that can read me Tolkien in Tolkien's voice. I'll go
I
to sleep for
that. I didn't even think of that. Oh my God, this is going to totally turn like the audiobook industry upside down. You can maybe what if you could go and you could pick a book and then pick a voice? I want to read Tolkien in Chris Rock's voice. And then they came around the bend, and there was another tree and two orc. That would not work.
David Attenborough reads, I don't know, something not Attenborough-esque at all.
Yeah, we get David Attenborough to read some of those like, like the smut books that you get in the grocery store or whatever. Like those romance novels. Yeah, I have. And then he reached his hand down upon her bosoms and.
No, let's just end there.
let's stop. Yeah, let's move right along. The problem with a lot of the artificial intelligence right now is it falls somewhere in the Uncanny Valley. The Uncanny Valley is kind of a fun place for me. I think there's something really. It's a lot of fun. And the Uncanny Valley is, you've got a humanoid robot, and when they're clearly robots and you look at them, it's like, oh, cool, a robot. But then there's this one spot where, like, they're very close to being human, but something is just off in their movement or off in something, and it produces a sensation of revulsion. Zombies are at the all the way down at the bottom of the valley there, the Uncanny Valley. Let me bring it back up on the screen. And then like prosthetic hand, people see prosthetic hands and they kind of jump a little bit because it can look kind of human, but it's not. It produces a weird effect. So a lot of the different technology right now falls into that, and it's kind of like revolting, like, ugh, that robot, man. So something like what Misu Kim has developed is a step that actually reaches the point of being so human that it doesn't fall into the Uncanny Valley. And once they reach that with micro expressions on, micro facial expressions, because you guys have seen some of the robotic faces out there that have like, the different muscle simulations and stuff. They're not there yet. When they move around, it produces sort of that, ugh, you know what I mean?
I've never really experienced I've worked a lot on this kind of stuff, and I've never really had a subconscious reaction to the Uncanny Valley, but I've sort of observed it in subjects. And except for Oblivion, like when I played Oblivion, the characters in Oblivion, something was off, and that's the first time that I've had a subconscious reaction.
The way they move or something?
The way that they moved and talked, and there was something that was off-putting about it, and it's only in Oblivion, and the other games doesn't really. Skyrim does it a little bit, but not as bad as Oblivion. In Oblivion, it's actually like. It is actually, I can feel it in my brain.
It's I think there's kind of there probably is an Uncanny Valley as well for the Elder Scrolls series. So let me talk about that for just a second, because you got Morrowind where the characters they move very stiffly, right? They're clearly characters in a video game. And then you had Oblivion. They still have that weird stiff motion, but the graphics are better, so it does that for you produces that weird sensation. And then with Skyrim, they're a little bit better still. So Maybe that's the the video game Uncanny Valley that's kind of produced that weird sensation. Yeah. Anyway,
I don't know if I was used to it, but Skyrim didn't seem as bad. Like Skyrim didn't seem more human. It seemed like they went the other way, but it was less off-putting as a result.
I don't know. Yeah, Skyrim is not photorealistic or anything like that, but yeah. Anyway, speaking of Skyrim, let's talk about some video games. Now, everyone seemed to be very excited about the game Lichdom Battle Mage from PAX East. Now, guys, go take a look at our PAX East videos if you like video games. I know a lot of you guys were pretty negative in the comments about a lot of the pixel art games coming out. A lot of people are sick of the 8-bit style, and that's okay. The market is totally saturated with some of those. I've got to say that my favorite game of the show was Hyper Light Drifter. It's a very Zelda-esque game, but it's very retro in style. I think the graphics may even be smoother on A Link to the Past. This is very blocky. It's got very blocky graphics, but I like the game. I really want to play it. I've been dying for a Link to the Past style game, but this one has like the visceral combat. It does feel meaty when you're playing the game. So I'm looking forward to that one. But I think a lot of people are more into games like Lichdom Battle Mage, where it's CryEngine, lots of effects going on. So I'm just curious to know what you guys are more interested in. Something else while I'm asking you guys questions. How would you guys feel about Pistol doing either a weekly or a bi-weekly show with someone else? She's more of a conversationalist. She doesn't like to sit down and just talk to a camera, like I am doing right now, talking to you guys. She likes to bounce ideas back and forth. But people were asking, hey, we would like to see Pistol do more stuff about video games or whatever. So would you guys be open to her doing a show? How would you guys feel about that? Let me know. So you guys see her stream every now and then, and you guys know what kind of game she plays. But she really has a broad range, and she plays just about everything. I don't know. Anyway, so there, I've asked a bunch of questions. We may also do a little video with Jimmy and Kane and myself and Pistol, where we talk about just some of our favorite things at PAX. But it's only going to be if you guys want it, so let me know. If you guys don't want it, it's a waste of time, and I'll
PAX
go
Unplugged, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. But if nobody wants to watch that, I'll go have a sandwich and a beer and spend my time doing that. I don't know. Anyway, what's this? That's nothing to do with anything. Okay. This is kind of interesting. Steam's most unpopular games. So 30% of the games purchased on Steam are never played. And you know what? I'm okay with this. I am totally okay with this. I think it's also interesting that Dota 2 is one of the most unowned games that are not played. So that's Dota 2. Everyone got Dota 2. It was like it just showed up in my thing, and I was like, "Thanks, Gabe. I really wanted Dota 2. Why is it in my inventory now? I don't know." So I've never played it. So of course not.
I like the bundles. Like I'm totally guilty of buying like the $10 bundle or the $20 bundle, and there might be a game or two in the bundle that I just have no desire in playing. And so I figured that a large percentage of those games never played factor into that category.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. People will buy like 20 games in one pack, and of course you're never going to play all of them, but you get the package because you want to play one key game from that package, or whatever. Skyrim is on this list. The Elder Scrolls Skyrim is, it's not high up on the list, but a lot of people have Skyrim but have never played Skyrim. That's kind of strange to me.
That is kind of strange.
I figured that would be something that, that game to me feels more like a destination. It's something, like, oh God, this is going to be a terrible analogy. Like sometimes you just go into a city and then wander around, but Skyrim is like a store that you go to. You go straight there. That makes no sense. But someone's going to get that analogy and be like, oh, I understand what you're talking about there. So yeah. Anyway, I don't know, it's interesting to see that. And the reason I'm kind of okay with this is I think a lot of times we see a game that we think is really cool, or it's from a developer that we love, but maybe we don't have that much time, and we spend $3 or $4 on that game. I'm okay with that because I want that developer to continue making games. So if I threw my money at something and I didn't play it, and it's not part of a bundle, then I probably either wanted to play it or liked the way it looked or liked something about it enough to spend my money on it, and I hope that developer continues to make games. So I'm okay with giving them $3 to support them. That's me personally, though. Let's get back to Morrowind. The newest development journal, I suppose, is online right now. And Skywind is, I said Morrowind, but this is Skywind. Now what they've done is they've taken Morrowind and they're redoing it in the Skyrim engine, But it's also going to, it's not going to be true to Morrowind as far as the combat and that sort of thing goes. You're using the Skyrim engine, so that stuff is going to be updated to be more like Skyrim. So if you're someone who found the old school combat of Morrowind tedious, then you're probably going to love this. If you're someone who's a purist and really wants that more role-playing feel to the combat, where every swing is a roll of the dice, and sometimes you'll swing and it'll look like you hit them, but you rolled a 2, so it's not going to count. If you like that, then you're going to have to just take Morrowind and fix the graphics up or whatever. But I'm just recommending that you guys go and check out this developer journal. It's pretty interesting. And I want to thank the guys for posting it on the forum. They hopped on the forum and was like, hey guys, and they posted a link to it right there on the forum. So one of the developers of this jumped on and posted it on our forum. So what's up, man? How you doing? It's pretty cool. I don't know, I'm really looking forward to this. I really did like the combat in Skyrim better than the combat in Morrowind. I guess I love RPGs, but I also love first-person shooter type games. So
I'm the odd man out. I really like the combat system in Neverwinter Nights, and everybody's always like, "Are you on crack?"
I thought, the Neverwinter Nights, it's got the space bar where you can pause it and then plan some maneuvers. Yeah, yep. I like that too.
It was just the right mix. I mean, they did the same kind of thing in Dragon Age, and it worked pretty well, Dragon Age, but it felt a little more polished in Neverwinter Nights. I don't know why.
Yeah. I played the hell out of Icewind Dale, which had pretty much the exact same system, but I didn't really play the Neverwinter Nights all that much. Maybe I probably should. All right, DLC quests. I don't think I showed you this one, but I'm going to go ahead and play this video. Turn it down a little bit.
DLC Quest 2033.
Okay, this game?
No, I was making a terrible joke that only 3 people are going to get it.
Oh. I didn't get it yet, but I'll probably get it in a minute. This game looks hilarious. So DLC quest, you basically start the game. You can only move right. There's no animation. And as you get in-game coins, you can unlock DLC so that you can move left and so that you have animations and stuff like that. I think they should have just called this EA the game. I mean, really.
This is where EA is going.
Yeah. It was like, oh, yeah, you can move, but you can't move backwards. You can only move, W works, but S does not work until you buy the DLC, $4. Anyway, I'm going to end with this. This is the game that I'm most looking forward to that I saw at PAX. Hyper Light Drifter. I was not exactly pleased with all the answers the guy, Alex gave me from it. He didn't really say much about the game. I asked him some things like, how big is the game now that you have extra funding? He was just like, well, yeah, the extra funding has allowed us to make the game bigger. And I was like, no, man, come on. So I didn't pressure him. He's a developer and he's got a lot of stuff going on, but I think the game looks beautiful even though it's pixel art. And you guys can argue with me all you want, but this is my favorite game that I saw at PAX and got to put my hands on a little bit. The combat does feel really good. Better than A Link to the Past. But it's a very pretty game, so... All right. So what I'm going to end with, let us know if you guys are, let me turn this down a little bit. Let us know if you guys are up for, seeing a PAX overview video where we sit down and talk about it. So everything went on. We've got a shenanigans video coming up too, and I think we have like 1 or 2 more PAX videos that are just, I have to edit and then get them out to you guys. So I'm busy watching this trailer right now. Anyway, anything else you want to add, Wendell, before we say goodbye?
Thanks to the supporters.
Oh yeah, the supporters are awesome.
You tech support, yay!
I'm trying to hire somebody. Crystal sat me down yesterday and she was like, if you don't hire somebody, I'm going to murder you.
Well, we found a guy. You just need to pull the trigger.
Yeah, I do. I want to wait till the taxes are done. I'm telling everybody, we're giving all you guys like an inside seat. We should tell our tech support members these things. We're filing taxes as a business now. It's like,
it's amazing, and we might have $5 left over.
I know. I didn't realize taxes were going to hurt so much, but man, I've got up this morning and put on a pair of slacks, and I'm a business person all of a sudden. I'm like, what the hell did that happen? It's terrifying. Okay, anyway. All right, guys. We will see you next week. Thanks a lot for the tech support dollars. They are going to be paying the salary for whoever I hire very soon to do a bunch of cool things, and I probably should pull the trigger. Everybody keeps telling me I'm scared, man. It's like, running a business is scary.
Yeah, it is, but we're doing what we can.
I don't know how you do it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks very much for everything. We will see you next week.